Hello everybody and welcome back to That's Life with me, Ryan Glenn. Today is a politics video for the Edexcel A-level politics course about how to answer the 30-mark source question. So hopefully you enjoy the video and it's helpful. Let's get into it. So basically the source question, you have to remember, you have to talk about the source. Every point you make has to come from the source. So what you do in the introduction is you basically say what the source says about the question at hand. For example, I've recently done a question about to what extent does the source support representative democracy being superior to direct democracy? So what I've said is in the introduction, I've said I've used quotations. So the source says this about representative democracy being superior to direct democracy, and it's also said this on the other side. But then I've given a brief explanation of which side it says more so, and therefore which side does it agree with? Does it agree that representative democracy is more superior to the direct democracy? And that's basically what you've got to do in the introduction, using quotations, using words from the source to show where your opinion of the source is coming from. So what words does the source use to suggest to you that actually it supports the view? And then you give your overall judgment about whether you think the source supports the view or not. And that's what you do for your debate points as well. You basically expand on that. You start off. I would start off by saying an important debate point that the source considers to show that you are examining the source and not what your beliefs are about the topic of the question. And then you can have start with the supporting sides of the view and against the side of the view. Both come from the source. It doesn't really matter which side. But I always start with sort of the support side. So what does the source say about the view, the question, the view in the question, and what does it say about supporting it? So what in the source supports the view? And then you basically give, before you go into the other side, you give just things in middle saying, therefore it could be argued that the source supports the view because of the words it's used or because of this reason. Before you move into the other side, and you say what part of the source suggests with regards to this specific debate point. So you have to have 3 debate points, and those points have to come from within the source. So what you can make out, what is the point of that word in the source? Just think to yourself, what does that mean? What is the source trying to tell me? And those 3 things of what the source is trying to tell you, you can sort of form into 3 debate points. And what does it suggest about both sides? So does it suggest it's a good thing that representative democracy is superior? It doesn't have, for example, the ability for people to vote directly on policies, and instead officials are elected to carry out policies. Does the source say that's a good thing? Does it say it's a bad thing? And then therefore you can basically form the debate point of politicians and say, are they good things, bad things? Sort of that idea, using what the source says and expanding on it to form debate points. So yeah, as I was saying, you need to make sure that your debate points are analysing both those sides. And overall, after you give the counter side, you need to make sure you actually look at both what you said in that paragraph, so both the for and against side. Whether the source supports the view, what parts in the source support the view and what parts disagree with the view. And you have to say overall which parts are greater, which part does the source have more of. Does it generally support the view or does it generally disagree with the view? And that's what you've got to do at the end of each debate point before you get into conclusion, which is basically your summarisation of the entire sort of your debate points and the source, because your debate points are the source's comments. So basically what you've got to say in the source is, whilst, for example, the source states actually direct democracy, as an example, allows people to make choices themselves. So using quotations, that word choices themselves might be a direct quote from the source, which is what you should be including, direct quotes. Actually, representative democracy ensures the interests of all people, not just people that vote for a specific candidate or an actual specific politician, but actually the interests of all people through political compromise are respected, because the job of a politician is to sort of mediate between those that support them and those that don't, and try to win the support of those other people. And if that is what the source is saying, and that's what the source evaluates sort of thing at the end, that is what you should convey in your conclusion. Overall, despite the weaknesses the source does suggest about representative democracy, it is superior to direct democracy, as the source says, because of the strength that the source actually comments on. And so basically your last comment should be, consequently the source agrees, or disagrees that representative democracy is superior to direct democracy to a large extent. So your last comment should be the source agrees or disagrees with the view. And that's what you've got to do throughout. You've basically got to say whether it disagrees or agrees with the view. So yeah, quite a quick video, but hopefully that gives you some information about making sure your points that you're talking about in each paragraph are coming from the source. So if the source mentions the ability of representative democracy to protect the interests of all citizens, that is a debate point you should be talking about. If it says, and then given the other side of what direct democracy would do, does it do it differently? Does it do it better? Or whatever the topic is, does the other side do it better? Or does the other side of the question do it better? Or does the source suggest it does? I mean, you can do loads of other debate points. You need to make sure that your debate points are coming from the source and not what you believe are arguments for and against a view in the question. Those arguments for and against a view in the question have to come directly from the source, because it's a source question. You're meant to be using the source to formulate your analysis of it and then suggest whether the source overall agrees or disagrees. So the source will always include for and against arguments. So they will always include arguments or points that agree with the view in the question and disagree with the view in the question. And your job, basically, as an overall summary here, basically is to weigh up to what extent does the source overall agree with the view, or does it overall disagree with the view. And so you've got to do that, and you've got to use quotations from the source to show where exactly in the source it is agreeing and where exactly in the source it is disagreeing. And throughout your debate points and your introduction, so at the end of the introduction, quick judgment about overall does it disagree or agree with the view, and you do that throughout each debate points at the end of each one, and then in your conclusion. Depending on which side you start on in each debate point, before you convert to the other side, just quickly say something like, I don't know, this suggests that the source does agree with the view in the question, or does disagree with the view in the question before you go to the other side. And the thing to remember actually about the judgments in the debate points, not in introduction and conclusion, is you've got to sort of show, whilst the source suggests it disagrees, or whilst it suggests things that may disagree with the view, it's actually, there's much more numbers of agreements of the source, and it explains this in this way, using these quotations, and therefore overall it agrees. So it's a bit more explanation involved in the judgment, rather than introduction and conclusion being more brief. But that's what you should be doing for the question and how to tackle the questions. Hopefully it's been helpful. If you find it helpful, please like the video, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you again for another video very soon. Thank you for watching.